So the dementia, just for people who are curious, which sessions are these that you will be recommending people to use?
If you can get your brain scanned, we could recommend others. I'll say that. But if you're just thinking, hey, I've got cognitive decline, then we recommend 3 times a day. First thing in the morning, you do one of our wake up programs, or if you go to our power user, there's one called AM. And then, but if you want to just do a meditation without any words, now words are important because they can change up to 2,300 gene expressions. If you're using, we only use positive information. We're not scaring people with negative conditioning. But the morning session is important because we got to regulate that brain as soon as they wake up. And before they do coffee or anything like that, we don't want any stimulants. We want the brain to start to learn to regulate on its own. And then in the afternoon, when the body naturally becomes tired, most people don't know this, but at 2:00 every day around the world, wherever you're at, doesn't matter if you're in China, US, Brazil, wherever, if it's 2:00 there, your temperature is dropping about 2 degrees. That's just the way that and then at night at 2:00, it increases 2 degrees. That's why people wake up sometimes in the middle of the night. Well, that's because our body's going through this cycle of energy exchange. And so when we have that biological low, unfortunately, most people in America go get coffee, tea, and chocolate, all the things that we don't want to do. We should be doing a meditation. So we have sessions they do in the afternoon. Those sessions, we recommend they do the Brain Fitness series. In that Brain Fitness series, there's 2 different versions. There's ones we call single voice, which is where just like any other meditation. And then there's some we call dual voice, which kind of freaks people out at first because I'm speaking in one ear. Like when I talk to the right ear, the left brain lights up. And when I do this at a seminar, I have a track where I only have the voice coming into the right ear and then the left ear. And we have somebody hooked up to QEEG and we're looking at the screen. And I'll say, you're wondering why we're doing that. And what happens is for about 2 minutes, the brain will light up the left, light up the right, light up the left. It'll keep going back and forth. And about 2 minutes into it, the brain just goes, what the hell? It stays open. So it basically we're teaching the brain that under stress, it doesn't have to shut down. What happens to most people, they don't realize this, but under stress, when your brain shuts down, you don't get access to all your creativity, all your logical thinking. It would be like the world shutting down and half the world's computing power shuts off. That's what happens to our brain under stress. But we can train the brain. That's what martial arts is all about. Things like yoga, breath work. They're all about keeping even though a lot of people teaching it don't even know that. But what happens is it really works to balance the brain.
That's so funny because I like the dual voice and it kind of scrambles my brain. I want to hear everything. So I'm trying to hear the left, but I'm also trying to hear the right. So I'm going back and forth. So you're saying at one point the brain just accepts. Does that mean the brain hears everything? It hears all the
Remember, the brain is listening to 25,000 pieces of information. That's nothing for the brain. Imagine right now it's collecting data from 75 trillion cells in your body, keeping the pH balance of your blood, helping you to breathe 21,000 times a day. And those are only a few little things it's doing. That part of your mind or brain can do such incredible things. So what we're doing is what I used to tell people was, I'm teaching you to be in a stress state, but feels good. So then when you get into a stress state in the world, you can still feel good because the brain will go, oh, I can figure that out. This was difficult, hearing all these voices going on. And part of it is just keeping those neurons firing. Our brain, unfortunately, people think when they're born, they're like an empty slate and they fill up the brain. That's not true at all. Now, neuroscience tells us when you're born, you're fully connected. I mean, I know you probably speak more than one language, right? You speak a few languages. Our science officer, Francisco, speaks 6 languages. When we were going through India, we're walking out, he starts talking to this person in Hindi. And I said, Francisco, when did you learn Hindi? He said, just since we've been here. And I said, how'd you do that? He also knows how to speak Mandarin and he goes, well, I speak 6 languages, so I just pick up languages really easy. Because the circuit that learns languages for most of us, yours is still open if you have two or more. But like for me, I only learned 1 language. And so my brain shut down. It said, you don't need that circuit anymore. You're with your tribe. So that's how it really works. The more we use it when we're younger, that's why the kids that get, special training when they're younger and get the attention, their brain stays fit for their whole life. Because after about 8 years old, the remodeling of the brain stops. and you're stuck with, you can still change it. Of course, we can adapt it, but it's not as easy and I think the main reason is up to that time, we're mostly theta and delta. But as soon as we get more alpha, beta, and we start to read and do those kind of things, our brain just starts to become fixed in its wiring. And then it takes effort to make that neuro change happen. It can happen, but it takes energy to do it.
Yeah. But you've seen in your research, basically the BrainTap device can help enhance the neuroplasticity, right? The fact that people are recovering.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, on the dementia study, we were measuring neuroplasticity, and the average neuroplastic change was 49% in 6 weeks.
Wow.
So that blew people away. And of course, we don't know every neuron, it's measured in energy. So we know that if they know how much energy the average neuron fires. And so they can, one thing that's interesting, because I'm always interested in ancient traditions and how we can make it modern technology. So we just published a paper that was published by PubMed now, if someone looks it up. I did a pranayama breathing research with Ames Institute, the All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences, where we did pranayama breathing, and we matched the two hemispheres just like we did in our study. It just took somebody doing breath work 5 times a day, which in America, that's not going to happen, but in India it did, so because they don't have the money for the BrainTap. So they're going to go ahead and there are ways to do it. We also showed that by doing martial arts in primarily Tai Chi, which is easy movements, that you can also reconnect the brain. So when people think they're just out there dancing, they're literally working out their nervous system and getting it to optimize. And that's why they have great memories. They're exercising that nervous system.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Or even, Tai Chi is one form of Qigong, or one form of martial art. I guess it could be considered part of martial art. And I remember when I was growing up in China, they were always saying how if you're little kids, so you can play piano and become smarter, or you can do martial art and become smarter. Each one teaches you discipline and does something for your brain. Is really interesting. So
I was amazed when I went to Wudang Mountain, where Qigong was invented in Tai Chi. I went there for a month. It was awesome. And they had the kids there. The kids were all learning because they were like adopted or they were left there at the temple. They either had to become a monk or a Tai Chi master, or martial. They did Kung Fu too, I think, but they became really good at that. And they were saying that they do that so that they can meditate, so they can get into that state. But they all learn the Tao, which is a humongous book, because on rainy days, if they don't go out and exercise, they have to read the Tao. So they read, they do a lot of exercises.
Very few Chinese people have ever read the Tao, but it's very